PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast, featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. Didn't we just leave this party?
What are you still doing here?
Go to your home. What is up, everybody? Welcome to PLD Projects. And no, this is not a rerun. We were here yesterday for you on Holy Snokes. We are here today for you on Holy Snokes because we had so much news to talk about, so much to talk about as far as news bits, as far as the Mandalorian episode yesterday. We wanted to make sure the Bad Batch had enough time to stand on its own. The Bad Batch might just be the best Star Wars show on TV right now, possibly. I want to make sure it gets its due, considering it's definitely, as far as the general pop culture goes, it's definitely in the shadow of The Mandalorian, but not here in Holy Snokes. I like them equally. As always, I am PLD. This is my sidekick, my trusty sidekick, my Wookiee co-pilot. How you doing, my friend? Matty Gunner.
Good, mate. It's literally Paul's like, all right, we finished The Mandalorian. Let's just get a change of clothes and talk about the Bad Batch. Yeah, we are recording this the next day. I've watched the Bad Batch episode 3 times now. I picked up on some things that you may question my sanity even more than you already do, but I have some revelating things I am ready to talk about with this episode. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, this might be the best animated Star Wars since the Mortis arc.
Wow, that is some high praise indeed.
So these last 2 episodes, it's like Mortis arc. These last 2 episodes of Bad Batch are like right there.
Even
if they
greater.
Stick the landing, it's just gonna go up and up and up.
Even greater than Siege of Mandalore, huh?
Yep.
Wow. Okay, that's hey, I respect that opinion, man. I respect that opinion. That's awesome. I agree that this is some of the best Star Wars television we've had, and this is some of the best animated Star Wars television we've had. It's in a way I kind of feel that the Bad Batch has really almost been like Clone Wars. This is almost like Clone Wars season 9 at this point. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like an extension of the Clone Wars. We just don't have all the same characters we used to have. But yeah, I don't disagree that this is doing some special things, and I want to shout out all the people like Jennifer Corbett. Like I know Dave Filoni created this whole thing, but Jennifer Corbett, like the head writer on it, I want to make sure that she gets her due.
I know we talked about it on Mandalorian, but like I hate following her on Twitter during this because for those of you who didn't watch our episode on Mandalorian, first up, go watch our episode on yesterday's episode of Mandalorian. But I talked about how before this episode aired, she tweeted, "Oh, this episode, you asked for it and you asked for it. We're going to give it to you." And she tweeted a picture of All Quiet on the Western Front. And I was like, oh, hell no. And then I watched the episode. I was like, fuck.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, but Jennifer Corbett, Brad Rao, they've done really some special things. And again, I think they sometimes get it's just very underrated. There's some people out there who just dismiss this for being not important Star Wars stuff, and I don't think they could be more wrong. I will say, I am not decrying you if the Bad Batch is not for you. First of all, I don't know why you're watching this episode because it's the Bad Batch. We all have our likes and dislikes. We all connect to things in a different way. I'm fine with whatever you want to like and whatever you don't want to like. I have a hard time wrapping my head around being a Star Wars fan and not getting the themes and how the greatness of this is delving into the lore and delving into everything that we love about Star Wars. So
for me, it's everyone that's like, oh, the animation is too kiddie. It's too childish. It's like, bro, have you watched these last few episodes? This is a children's show.
Yeah, well, that's definitely not a children's show, that's for sure.
No.
And more I watch, the more I just give me the confirmation of season 3, please. Because I can't do without my Star Wars animated universe at this point. I need more. But before we get into the Bad Batch episode that we're going to take down today, we do have a couple of news bits that dropped, little pieces of information that dropped in between yesterday's episode and today's episode here. Again, Star Wars News Net. I always get my news from them. I always feel like they are a great source of well curated information. Two things that I thought were interesting. There's an article first where it discussed Rick Famuyiwa was discussing his career progression on The Mandalorian with the Hollywood Reporter, and a lot of it had to do with how he wrote on season 1, and then by now he's developed a point where he's actually exec producing the season 3, which allows Dave Filoni to go and kind of help. Dave Filoni obviously still working on The Mandalorian, but lets him also concentrate on Ahsoka that's going to be coming out shortly. So it's able to be it's a continuation of what's working, because he was so heavily involved in season 1 anyway. He was the proper choice and the obvious choice to have someone help step in and help out the crew, so to speak.
And do you know what that speaks to me is we talked about it as well yesterday, the episode of Inside of You with Sam Witwer. He was saying how loyal, how Lucasfilm may not pay the best, right, but they are loyal and they will always bring you back and give you other opportunities. And I like this because they're like, Rick started as a writer, and then he got leveled up to a director, and then they leveled him up to executive producers. Right. Like, they take care of their own, and they have, it's like a company that just hires from the outside, gets nothing but contractors in. It's like, you got guys on the inside, train them up, like get them, like improve them, like stick to your homegrown talent.
Absolutely. Things are working. Don't break it. Just expand on it from there. And that's what we get. And that's what I meant by Bad Batch. Obviously, Dave Filoni did somewhat similar. They got Brad Rowe and Jennifer Corbett, kind of trained them up. Not trained them up, but like, I don't want to say that he trained them up, but he got them involved. And while he left and felt comfortable leaving Bad Batch season 2 to them, obviously, and rightfully so, as we are to determine. But the rest of the article, the most interesting part of the article to me, something that we kind of talked about yesterday. You brought it up, and I kind of thought it'd be exciting. He was asked directly about whether Din and Grogu would ever appear in a feature film. Now, you talked about how this might culminate in a movie. This is a little bit different. This is slightly different, just whether they'd be in a movie or whether they'd be in a feature film or not. But, it's related. His quote back was, "I don't know what the big plan of everything is. And obviously there's so much storytelling happening now in Star Wars. There are series and a lot has happened in the films. So what that all means is in terms of how we create things and for what medium has all started to blur. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I certainly don't have any inside knowledge about anything that's happening in that regard. But there's a large storytelling community within Star Wars that is very active on the series side and continues to be active when it comes to what may be happening with the films moving forward." Well, he says a lot, but doesn't say anything of complete value. Like, I don't say it's not value, but like, obviously he's smart enough not to confirm anything. He's under lock and key, I'm sure, like everybody is. He's not going to drop any bombs. Yeah, they're going to make a film. Like, he's going to let Lucasfilm do what they need to do. But if you look deeply into what he's saying, it feels like he knows more than he's letting on.
Oh, for sure. He's saying way too much to be someone that doesn't know anything.
Right, absolutely. That last sentence, it tells me everything I need to know. There's a large storytelling community in Star Wars that is very active on the series side and continues to be active when it comes to what may be happening with the film is moving forward. That means to me, and I could be wrong, but that means to me that we are starting to see a little more overlap between the film side and the series side, a little more of a connected universe like we were always promised. So that's what that feels to me. What do you think about it?
I said it back when you and I appeared on that episode of LGR's The Holocron. That was when I first said it. This is going to culminate in a movie.
All right.
Rick Famuyiwa just pretty much just signed, sealed, and delivered on my prediction. I'm not even going to bother speculating responsibly to this point because I'm just like, I smell smoke. I smell smoke, and that's definitely going to be fire.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to see. It's good to see that way. I like the more connectivity. To me is a good thing. That's something that we always sold. And while it didn't quite hasn't quite worked out that way with some of the books and some of the comics and things, I do like the working more towards that than not. So, okay, the next little bit of news, again, it's not a huge earth-shaking news, but I just thought it was an interesting, maybe confirmation is the right word. Jon Favreau was having a discussion with Movie TV, and he was talking about The Mandalorian and everything else. And specifically, the quote that kind of made a little bit of waves was that he basically confirmed that that Lucasfilm is at least discussing projects set after the Rise of Skywalker, so post Skywalker saga. His exact quote when asked was that there's definitely a conversation that's going on, and then also what happens after the sequel trilogy, because the sequel trilogy only takes place over the course of a few years, and it's a big thing on screen, and it's very eventful, but it is a relatively brief moment in history over the course of the thousands of years that Star Wars takes place. And so what happens after it is interesting too. And I know that there's some discussion, exploration going on about what happens after it. So I think that there are certain markers that we have. It's almost like studying ancient history, where you kind of know a few things that happened, but there's a lot of murkiness in between, and we just don't have archaeological evidence in the real world to know exactly what happened. So we kind of connect the dots. To me, that just states one thing. It's Jon Favreau, who's probably one of the highest up in Lucasfilm at this point, considering how he's in charge of the Maniverse, pretty much. He's not doing anything with the films yet, but he is a filmmaker. So obviously he's in the know. If he's saying discussions are happening, that tells me that yes, discussions are happening, and that's probably going to be someplace that they want to go. This kind of confirms the rumors that we've heard. I shouldn't say confirms. Confirm is a strong word because
it shines a brighter light.
It does coincide with the rumors we've heard that potentially the Lindelof film that's been being developed was going to be set post Rise of Skywalker. No word on who would be involved, whether we'd see any sequel trilogy characters or anything like that. But at least time frame wise, that was what was being developed. Now, could I be wrong? And Lindelof's film set like in the High Republic era? I could be. Maybe they're talking about something else. Maybe Taika Waititi's film is in there. Maybe. But yeah, that's what we have to say here. Now, what do you think about Jon Favreau's comments?
Listen, Johnny Favs, he loves to drip feed little things here and there that you kind of have to sift, as you love to say, sift through the tea leaves to kind of pick out what he's saying. Yeah. To me, with this, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a zebra. I do not trust a word that comes out of Jonathan Favreau's mouth until I see it on the screen.
Oh, really? Okay.
I trust in Johnny Favs, I trust in terms of a creative standpoint, but that man is a silver-tongued devil.
Oh, interesting. So, do you think they're not going to be going post Rise of Skywalker? Is that what you're thinking? Or do you think they're going to go post Rise of Skywalker?
I don't know. There's so much that people putting into the Daisy Ridley was there at Lucasfilm, and I was just like, maybe she was just going to pick up a paycheck. Maybe she was, like she said, maybe she was just meeting someone who works there for lunch. You know, she worked with people there for a long time. She was probably in LA promoting something else and was like, hey, I'm going to stop by and say hello. I feel like with the wave that the High Republic is getting right now, I feel like, and with the you've got a show in the Acolyte that's set between the two. Between the High Republic and the Skywalker saga. Why would you just do one show set there and just be like, all right, we're good, we're going to leave it. We're just going to do one show there and just leave that era alone. You're not going to have anything else there. You can have one show and a bunch of books. That's it. No, I feel like that's going to be a period of time that they're going to start to expand on. Because it seems weird to me that why would they just do one TV show that's set there?
Interesting. So you think they're going to go back despite every other rumor thing we're going forward? Interesting conversation to have, I guess. That'll be an interesting way to take it. I mean, the opposite angle of that is we'll let High Republic stand on its own and let the books discover that at this point while we push things forward. I don't think I agree with you. I see what your point is. I get where you're coming from, and I it's something that I would not think about a little bit more. I do think where there's smoke, there's fire kind of situation. I don't know about the Daisy Ridley situation. I do think that she's open to coming back, and I think that they would like to have her back. And maybe there was a conversation to be had. I do think the next movie we're going to get is going to be post Rise. I do think they want to. I do think that they want to push, because as far as pushing things forward goes, it's hard to push things forward if you're doing a mid-quill. Mid-quills are always kind of notoriously more about filling in gaps than
Yeah.
pushing a narrative forward. Solo was done as a mid-cool kind of thing too. Well, we learn about the history of Han Solo. Rogue One, we learn about what led up to A New Hope kind of thing. It's hard to push the overall narrative of Star Wars going that way if you do something like that. Now, you could do like way back when, I get that, but I feel like they want to let that sit in the books for now instead of trying to make that a big moment at this point. We let the books kind of do their thing for a bit, and then a few years down the line, maybe we'll do that at that point. I do think in the heads of people, if you're moving forward, you have to go past what we already know. And what better way also, like we said before, you mentioned it yesterday, you said if we could have Luke appearing in this Mandoverse, if they do the Heir to the Empire trilogy or the Thrawn trilogy, so to speak, the sort of inspired by Thrawn trilogy, having Luke in here, you made the reference of people going, well, the Skywalker saga is done, but this is taking place before the Skywalker saga.
It is, yeah.
At this point, though, if we do a movie that's anywhere that's before Rise of Skywalker, that's not in High Republic, doesn't that also feel like it takes place in the Skywalker saga, just timeline-wise? Yeah. So, like, I feel like they go forward past Rise of Skywalker, they can actually say, completely different era. Skywalkers are done. This is where we are now. I think they want to make that statement at this point.
I don't think they're ready to throw away the Skywalker name yet. It's such a cash grab. No, not a cash grab, but it's such a staple. It's like the one-headed Mount Rushmore. Like the Skywalker name is Star Wars. Unfortunately, yes, you have Leia, you have Han, you have Obi-Wan, but like you go walk up to someone in the street and be like, "Hey, name me a character from Star Wars." Oh, Luke Skywalker.
Right.
And the reason I say High Republic is because they have the one show with the Acolyte. Phase 3 of the books is probably going to be over in like 2 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna be like, all right, what are we gonna do with it after that?
Interesting.
The Acolyte's probably going to be out in like 2 years' time. It's probably going to coincide with the end of Phase 3.
I think spring of next year. I think the Acolyte's supposed to come out spring of 2024, I believe.
Yeah. So they're going to be like, all right, what are we going to do next?
Right. Movie. You could be right. You absolutely could be right. That might be something else to develop.
I could be dead wrong.
I just think that they also want to establish a post-Rise of Skywalker timeline as well. I think that's partly what they want to do. And I think you can do that. You don't have to throw away the Skywalker name per se, because Skywalker name can still be used in other projects. You could, like I said, the Mandoverse. You can still have the Skywalker stuff in the Mandoverse. You can do an animated show with the Skywalkers. You could do a movie, a different movie at that point. But I still think there's a reason to have the first film that they bring back, the first film we go back to. I think they want to make a statement that we're going to talk about some post-Rise Skywalker stuff. Yeah. That's just my own gut feeling on
it. I'd be all for it too, especially if they bring Daisy Ridley back. Especially if John Boyega's been killing it in everything he's done since Star Wars.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's ready to come back. It seems like Oscar Isaac would come back definitively, as it feels like when you're talking to him. Like, give him enough, enough money, and he'll be back. So I don't know what to say, but we'll find out hopefully soon enough. We'll find out hopefully in about a month's time. And you will find out in person, hopefully. But all right, let's move on from news and let's get into this week's episode of The Bad Batch. Obviously, the episode, The Outpost, which is the 12th episode of the second season. And for the second time this year, we have a batchless episode. We have Crosshair. It's a Crosshair solo episode, so to speak. And just like the Solitary Clone, which was, I think, might be my favorite episode of the season still so far. This was kind of in that vein in a way. It was definitely in that vein, almost like a sequel to that directly almost. I remember mentioning before that this was that Crosshair had not been in since that episode. And I felt like they were keeping him away for a reason. And I kind of still feel like that now. I feel like we are getting Crosshair's story done well in terms of we don't need to see him every week to realize what's going on. I think he has it's a long journey to make in his head, but it's a short journey to depict. Like, it's just, you got to see him where he's going, and you got to see what's going on, the pressure on in his life, how he's seeing things after obviously having the chance to rejoin the Bad Batch at the end of season 1 and sticking to his guns and not rejoining them to rejoin the Empire. He has to deal with those bad decisions that he's made. Obviously, they're bad decisions as we come to see now specifically. We don't need to see that in every episode. We just need the big chunks that we're having here. And I think this is the biggest culmination to that. But we'll get into that in a moment. Of course, we always do on Holy Snokes. We try to take this one by one. We talk segments. We break it down via segments, and we get into it that way. And of course, we clean it up at the end. The first segment we always start with on Holy Snokes is Hondo Watch 2023.
Who wants to see Hondo's book? Talk to me!
Quite easy. The question is, does Hondo Ohnaka return? Does he make an appearance in this episode of The Bad Batch? And the answer, my friends,
This effort is no longer profitable!
well, Hondo Watch continues without being rewarded so far. It's sad. It's very sad.
They had perfect opportunity in this episode.
Did they? Yeah.
Who is the most likely person to be stealing things from the Empire?
Oh no! Although I will say,
Mayday and Crosshead go into the cabin. They see the boxes. There's like, "Hello, my friends. Like, they're stealing this Empire. They're putting you out of a job. You don't want to get back with this. Let me take it."
well, all jokes aside, semi-jokes aside, we do love seeing Hondo. Obviously, I don't think that quite fits in the tone of this episode. Much like we said in Solitary Clone, much more darker side of things, and his gracious commentary and comedy probably wouldn't quite have fit the tone as far. There's other episodes where he definitely could have been in. But I'm okay with him not being in this episode. But let's get him in there soon.
Yes.
So. All right, let's move on then to our next topic. We call this the mission briefing.
What do you need, Rex? Any chance I could use you for a mission?
This is a segment where we basically give you a short summary, leads to some discussion on things, and then we eventually will go through the rest of our segments and then kind of return to the mission briefing to sum up the rest of the story. But we start here right away. We know right away it's Crosshair waiting at a spaceport, watching things go down. We get the clone troopers behind the scenes getting forced into retirement, which is an interesting side to me. For me, is we actually have that bill passed. Al Palpatine came up, passed the military bill, basically phasing the clone now, but we don't have a clear definition of what that means specifically. Like, we had clones being forced into retirement, yet we had clones in this episode as well. So no definition. Obviously, the clones are still, so there are some active clones still as we move on. So what determines, like, is it just the first generation that are forced in retirement now? Or I don't understand exactly how they're doing it. Obviously, we are moving to a place where the clones are being phased out for the Stormtrooper, but it's just not quite clear. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's even one of the first shots that we see in this episode of the Imperial officer walking those two clones away, and they're like, "Well, what are we supposed to do now? We're soldiers." And she's like, "Please direct all questions to blah, da, 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 da." And it's just like, they don't care.
No,
like the Empire don't care at all.
Right. But at the same time, we do have clones going on this mission, so they're not all being phased out. Obviously, Crosshair gets met by Lieutenant Nolan, who is a first-timer and a douchebag and extraordinaire. The douchebag.
Can we call him Lieutenant Dickhead throughout this whole episode? I had such a visceral reaction to this character that I don't think I've had. Even Rampart didn't get me this riled up.
Wow! Oh, so quickly. I agree with that. I get that. He's very quick to showcase things. I think it's a case of the fact that we saw all of his bad and none of, not that he has good, but we didn't see anything that was redeeming at all.
It's just the fact that he was like, "Oh, I hate used technology."
Use parts.
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, dude, shut it, F you, bro. And he's a lieutenant, and what's the famous quote? Like, experience outranks everything.
Yeah, we actually get that. We get that to a degree, like not a parody of it, reimagining of that quote when he talks about earning respect later on. Mayday talks about earning respect. Similar vibes to that. Exactly that. He's that. How many missions have you run? None. None.
Like, Mayday's I knew as soon as they named him, I was like, oh no. The cool, like first time you see a clone with long hair, like I finally feel seen in the clone army. I'm just like, oh no, please don't name him. Oh my God. I knew they got to stop doing this. It's not fair.
Right. I get it.
You can't, every time a clone has a name, you're like, well, that guy's done for.
Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong. Well, we'll get there in a moment. Obviously, so Crosshair and Nolan are set on with some other clones go to this very remote outpost on a very snowy, icy world that is very little life on it appears to be. And we meet Mayday and a few clones that are supposed to be guarding the base. We learn pretty quickly that the Empire has not been helping them out at all. They've been basically saying, hey, you're on your own, do what you can. And they're losing men. They have raiders that are fighting to get this cargo that we don't know much about this cargo. We just know that the Imperials need them to guard it and get it going back into the Empire. And we get Mayday is a great character. Mayday just comes off very. He makes a great first impression. He's a little cranky, like rightfully so. He definitely seems to be a veteran who's been through a lot. And we see that he's a loyal guy to his troops. He's lost a bunch of them. I love the little detail we had. We have the clone trooper helmets. The remaining clone trooper helmets are all kind of stacked up, almost like a little graveyard on the cargo. Obviously, he's lost a lot of men. He's pretty snarky to the lieutenant. And it's great seeing Crosshair. After like Solitary Clone, you've seen that Crosshair has kind of made a few steps in the right direction as far as realizing that he's a number, not a name anymore. He's still, I think you see it in his head all the time. We talked about emoting through the helmet. We see that a lot today in this episode, where he's kind of like, he's warring in his head. He's trying to be the good soldier who follows orders. At the same time, he's starting to see that he's not valued. He had a hard time reconciling that in his head. In fact, there's a great moment. Again, one of the greatest quotes they did in a very subtle way. Mayday says something to the effect of, we are good soldiers who followed orders, and guess where that got us? And that really hits home to Crosshair, who's still trying to figure this all out. So we get this idea: the troopers or the raiders attack the base, take off some of the cargo. They do their best to defend it, and Mayday's ready to let the cargo go, but of course, Lieutenant's basically says that the cargo is more important than the clone troopers. So that Mayday and Crosshair, Mayday, who has now lost the rest of his troops, Mayday and Crosshair have to go out into this icy, barren wasteland and get the cargo back. All the while looking up and seeing ice vultures circling around. Let me stop there for a second. I think you can make anything cool just by putting the word ice in front of it.
Yeah.
Ice vulture. I like creature-wise. Ice vulture. Ice hawk.
Ice tiger.
Right. Just seems even cooler. Seems even more
Ice
badass.
wolf.
Right. It's like, what? It seems even more badass. So they get the Crosshair and Mayday have a great interaction, great conversation as they're journeying towards their destination, tracking down this cargo. There's just great moments, of course, where they see a dead raider left behind, and Mayday spouts out he can't leave. He's upset that the raiders left their man behind, whereas Crosshair is dead weight. And they have this great conversation. It feels like everything that's being said is kind of needling at Crosshair. He's not quite able to admit it because he wants to stick to his programming. He wants to stick to his good soldiers follow orders, but you can tell it's needling in on him. We had a great battle sequence there when they find first of all, we have the Crosshair stepping on the mine, which is a great little story beat there. Again, adds the conversation, adds the dead weight. It almost has to prove him wrong because Crosshair is dead weight at this point, but Mayday's not going to leave him behind. We get to the base where they find the raiders. They have a battle sequence. Unfortunately, do not get the cargo back. There's an avalanche. They have a hard time getting back. They make their way back after the battle's over, after defeating most of the raiders, barely making it back alive. Mayday is on his last legs due to the avalanche. Crosshair barely making it. How you can see he's tired. He's exhausted. We get a sequence at the end where he tries to get help. Lieutenant Nolan is a dick again, does not care. We're not going to waste the Empire's resources on a clone of all things. We have the death of Mayday. Crosshair takes that beat, and he finally makes his decision, takes out the lieutenant with a blaster bolt, goes unconscious, wakes up in Mount Tantus, undergoing some kind of experimentation or some kind of treatment or something, and the doctor's going to come see him soon. That's where we end. That's the basic overview of the show. Did I miss anything important before we get into the themes and stuff?
No, we'll loop back around to some things.
We'll break it down. Okay, let's break it down. Let's break it down to the rest of our segments. Of course, we're going to talk first the Bachelor of the Week.
I was hoping for the whole squad, but you'll do.
Okay, this one was easy for me. Easy enough. To me, it's Crosshair. It was almost Mayday. Mayday because I love Mayday so much, but I don't know how you could be a Bad Batch fan, not watch this from the beginning and not see this episode and finally be rooting for Crosshair to finally come to his senses. And the culmination of pretty much everything since season 1 culminates right here at the end. Crosshair finally makes his decision that good soldiers don't always follow orders. Beautiful moment. I love watching everything go on in his mind. I watched the struggle he went through, the absolute hell he went through, and the final exhaustion, which pushes him to the breaking point. Finally, I know I stood up and shouted and fist pumped when it just happened at the end. You see it and you love it. So Crosshair is definitely my choice of the week.
Yeah, mine is the same. Solely for the moment where he put a blaster bolt right into that son of a bitch's heart that doesn't exist. The only thing that could have been more satisfying is if he'd have put that blaster bolt right between his eyes. Like that blonde hair, blue-eyed Nazi piece of shit. Like he was looking at Mayday was laying there dead, and he just says to Crosshair, "Get up and get back to work. You will speak to me with respect. Me who has never served a day in my life. Me who has never commanded a mission a day in my life. You will speak to me with respect. You will do as I tell you." And Cross was just like, "Not today. No, we're not doing this today."
What do we say to the God of this? Not today. Not today. I love it. Exactly my point. I want to say that Mayday is a definite runner-up because of how cool he was. We get to meet a lot of clones over the course of the years. Some of them stick more than others, obviously. And this one I want to know more about, which actually leads me to one of the next segments down the line. Before we get there, our next segment first is I Spec.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here.
This is our favorite lines of the week, our favorite lines of dialogue, and there were plenty to choose from. It's funny, yesterday we had a show about The Mandalorian, and we had struggled a little bit with the lines because it wasn't a very dialogue-driven episode. This had so many lines to choose from, so many moments where, most of Mayday's speeches or anything he talks to Crosshair about makes you think and makes you go, wow, okay, this is what's going to get through. This is what's going to get through to Crosshair. This is what's going to get through to Crosshair. But to me, there's only one word line won the day for me. Lieutenant. Just when, as soon as Crosshair, after Mayday dies and after he tells him to suck it up and get back to work, Lieutenant turns around and you see it on his face, and Crosshair just says, "Lieutenant," to turn him around, to blast him. Such a powerful moment. And the inflection, there's so much you can put into one word, and that's the word for me this week.
Yeah. Is that he addressed him by his rank.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't mention him by name because, hey, Crosshair doesn't have. If I don't have a name, you ain't got a name.
Bingo.
I'm not going to call you by your name if you're not going to call me by mine.
Bingo. So good. All right. What about you then, my friend? What is your favorite line?
Mine is a quote that I will now have engraved on my headstone when I am long gone from this world. It is a quote that I will now continue to live my life by. It is, "I am confident, but I'm not stupid."
Yeah, that actually did that. That was one of my on my short list too. That whole sequence.
I want that on my headstone. He was confident but not stupid.
Even the one before I had Crosshair, I love Crosshair needling him. I'm glad to see you're confident in your you're confident in your work there. That's such a good way, man. Man, that was a great They were a great pair. It was great seeing. I almost think it was a good depiction of Crosshair working with somebody again. He didn't really get to work. He worked with Cody a little bit, but that was kind of a predetermined thing. This was Crosshair getting back into that group mentality, where he can kind of verbally spar with somebody. I can see him having the same conversation with someone like a Tech or an Echo or that kind of thing. It kind of felt right. It felt right to see that again. But yeah, I did love that. Mayday had a lot of great lines. It's funny. I use Lieutenant and the Crosshair line as my line of the week, but I could have had many of the Mayday lines that were just phenomenal. Yeah, good call, Matty. All right, let's go into the next segment. Of course, put that in your holocron and smoke it.
Do you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Where we take a look at something that happened in the episode and we said, we want to look a little bit deeper into this. We want to know a little bit more about what's going on. And to me, this week's was pretty simple to me. I had a couple different ones I thought about. I mean, the ice vultures are kind of cool, but I don't want to go too far into that yet. I did think about the clones and like I think we're going to get into that, what the clones are doing at this point with the forced retirement. But to me, Mayday made such a impression on me. I want Mayday's heroes. I want to know. I want like a little limited series. Give me Mayday in the Clone Wars with his crew, because Mayday has such charisma, such panache. I love to see more about his adventures. And we know, obviously, at the end of the episode, he's gone. We don't get to see him moving forward. So let's get something about him in the past. Maybe a tales of Mayday's crew. How about you, my friend? What do you think?
It's tough because that's a really good one. I want to know more about the smaller outposts where these clones are, where they've got them kind of like cornered away.
Right.
Like where else have they got the clones right now?
That's
have they got a clone outpost on Dagobah? Are there clones on Tatooine? Like there seems to be like these very small splinter cells of clones that have just kind of been like, you guys go all the way out there, like just stay put there. Like we'll send you stuff when we feel like it. Just you go out there, won't hear from us for a bit, go do your thing. And I'd be quite interested to see more of that.
I like that. I really like that quite a bit. I agree. There could be, I mean, it's almost counterintuitive. Part of me says, like, there's no way stories like that could happen or Mayday stop, because it would be, well, that's just basically more Clone Wars. That's what we would have seen in the Clone Wars. But at the same time, I think there's places we can do that. Maybe we have some kind of anthology series about just, I mean, almost in a way, it feels like we could have a Star Wars anthology series, a series that can take place any place, anytime, as long as we determine this episode takes place during the Clone Wars, this episode takes place in the
Tales of the Clones.
Tales of anything. It could be anything like that, little bits and pieces of things here and there. I'd like to see a Star Wars anthology show like that, where we could just not be fettered by almost anything. You could see anything any week. We'd have stuff happening in the First Order. You could go anywhere you want, and we could throw some more Clone Wars stuff into that without trying to make another Clone Wars TV show, so to speak. But I do like that. I do like that quite a bit. All right. Next segment we got.
Hear a lot of carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
Seen a lot of action. What is your favorite action beat? Well, I've taken a lot of these on. Maddie, what about you? What is your favorite action beat this week?
Mine is the Hurt Locker, the when we were soldiers in the insert war movie here moment with the landmine. Because as soon as you see Crosshair put his foot on it, you're like, oh no. And you kind of know, it's like, okay, surely he's gonna get out of this. But I also thought, I was like, as he was taking his foot off, there was kind of a moment where the music kind of started to like hang a little bit and like start to swell a bit. Like, oh my god, is there going to be like a delayed explosion?
Right.
Is the cave going to like close in on them and they're going to have to survive that way? And I was just like, the tension in that moment. It's a tried and tested trope that we've seen in many a war movie. I've just given you two, but still, it still works
Absolutely.
every time.
And that's always been actually a very trope, and even in Star Wars itself, you get the two people together, not necessarily friends or anything, but they get caught in a situation and they have to work out some of their details. In this case, they were friends, but they still had to work out where Mayday is versus where Crosshair is. They already started to work on that, but yeah, stuff like Enemy Mine. But you also have stuff like in Star Wars verse, like Honorable Ones and Rebels, with Callus and Zeb, that kind of thing. Could have been it's a nice trope to force those two people together to work together to discuss their sides of things. Yeah, that's a good point. I love that. I did like that as well. I will put forth, honestly, it's a more obvious choice, but I mean, the battle against the Raiders in the caverns was just well done action. I mean, it's kind of funny. I've seen a lot of these battles, but like when the stun grenade goes off and all of a sudden the Raiders kept coming, I was like, there's a lot of those Raiders there, a lot more than I thought, because they just kept coming. And it's 2 against like a whole lot of them. But they did well. They were fighting off pretty large set of forces there, but it was a fun action beat. They had a lot of moments there where we saw Crosshair really doing his thing and Mayday doing his thing. I did love that one quite a bit. So
yeah, the only armor that Crosshair can't penetrate is plot armor. There's the moment where the two of them are behind the rock, and like there's more and more blaster shots that are coming at them to the point where they're like essentially huddled together behind the rock. I was like, oh, they're screwed. Like they're either gonna get captured or Mayday's gonna get shot. And that was a great moment. That was a lot of fun because it was just kind of it started the stockpiling of crap that they had to go through to get home.
Absolutely. Good stuff there. All right, let's move on to our next segment.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
Comic Bits, our best humor moment of the week. Again, not a very humorous episode overall, but there was humor to have. Matty, how about you? What was your favorite laughing moment of the week, or chuckling moment even?
It's a moment that I don't know why it made me laugh. But when Lieutenant Dickhead got shot, I laughed. It was one of those laughs where you're like, ha! He actually did it. I was laughing and I was grinning ear to ear. I was like, he actually did it. Like
Triumphant laugh.
Yeah, and he was just like, you know what? I'm done with the Empire. Like, I'm a good soldier, but I ain't gonna follow this order.
Right.
Boom. And I just started laughing. It was so satisfying. I think because that guy, I don't know, maybe it's some deep-rooted childhood thing. I used to have this teacher that, obviously over here in the UK, when you go to secondary school and primary school, you have to wear a uniform. Mm. I always had this one teacher that would give me a detention every week because I wouldn't wear my blazer.
Of course.
Like I would come to class just in like, I still have like the tie and the trousers and everything on. I just wouldn't wear a blazer, especially like in the summer, and he'd give me a detention. So that moment where he was like, "Why are you out of uniform?" and Crosshair just puts the helmet on. Like I was like, "Oh, you remind me of that guy. I hate you straight away."
That's awesome. I get that a lot. That was cool. For me, it was an obvious choice of the source of humor because at the very least, Mayday, even with his bitterness, cynical outlook at this point, he is very funny. He was very funny in terms of snarkiness. I always love a good snarkiness, so I can't lie there. But my favorite line, I think, actually, I kind of warred between the one you mentioned before about the confident and not stupid. Was similar to that. It was just the moment where he said, when Crosshair says something about dead weight, like, well, he's dead weight. And he just turns to him and goes, remind me not to die on your watch. I'm like, that's right. It's funny. That's funny as hell. Oh God. It's so funny as hell. But not only that, but it actually worked because it was obviously so important to the episode at this point. It obviously becomes so important to like the end of the episode where he actually does pretty much die on Crosshair's watch, and yet, despite what Crosshair says, he doesn't leave him behind. He brings him home. Unfortunately, it's to a bitter end, which makes it even worse. But so it's a great moment of humor that touched on some very important part of the episode in whole. So, my favorite there. All right, let's move on to our next segment.
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
In order to rate the episode on PLD Project, we always rate out of 11 because we always turn up to 11 here on PLD Project. So from 1 to 11, what do you give the Bad Batch episode of this week?
This is a solid 11.
Heard 11. Wow, double bangers this week. I believe you gave Mandalorian 11 as well. So 2 11 for you.
The only reason I'm giving it 11 is because I can't give it 12.
Wow.
I love the tension in this episode. I love the themes of this episode. I got the most visceral reactions out of this episode more than I did the Mandalorian. Like I actually was emotionally and physically invested in this episode to the point where I was like getting up off of my couch and like swearing at the lieutenant just because of like everything he was saying. And that moment when Crosshair collapses, I was like, no, don't let this be the end. Don't let this be how it happens. Because like that kind of music that was starting to swell and then it just cut to black. I was like, this can't be it. This can't be the way it ends.
Yeah, I had the same actually fear. I'm not going to lie. When it started, I was like, no, they're not going to kill him here, are they? There's no way they could kill him here. But then I kind of had this moment in my head. I'm kind of like, well, what if they got canceled? What if like they have to end this season 2? Like they can't. So they're trying to make it end. So like maybe are they going to have him? They couldn't figure out a way. Like his story was to push on to season 3 or something, and now they had to the end with the Omega storyline or something with the clones. So they had to get Crosshair out and try to give him a satisfactory end where he turned out his empire, his training, his orders, and but he had that bittersweet like moment where his victory was in death, and I was like, this can't be right. No, don't do it. And then he opens up his eyes in Tentis, and you're like, okay, we're okay. We're okay.
We're kind of okay.
We're kind of okay. We're living. We're like Crosshair. We're still alive to fight another day.
It is a case of out of the frying pan into the fire.
Definitely. So, but we'll talk about that shortly. As far as I go, I'm going to give this a 10.5 out of 11. Near perfect for me as well. I try to save my 11s for something a little bit more. I don't even know what I can say. I try to say it's very rare for me to give out an 11. So 10.5 is pretty close to, pretty damn close. Especially for, again, Batchless episodes have been really great this year. The Cross episodes have really taken a step forward and really given us a lot to think about and a lot to really appreciate. So I have to shout out these episodes, and I can't wait for more. I think this is finally setting things into place. And with that, let's move on to our final segment before we clear things up, before we catch up and give our last thoughts. We have Force Visions.
Premonitions?
Okay, this is where we decide what's going to happen soon. It could be next episode. It could be the end of the season. Could be 40 years from now in Ahsoka. If it has to be something from this episode that spawns forward as to what's going to happen. This, to me, we are entering the final end game of season 2 now. Obviously, Crosshair is in Mount Tantus, which is where they are looking to end things, so to speak. You have Dr. Hemlock, who is trying to find Omega now for various reasons. We still don't know exactly what's going on as far as their experiments go, what they need Omega for, and what they need Crosshair for now, because obviously it seems like they're taking tests. Is it either A, are they going to use Crosshair to get Omega there? That's one thing. But it also seems like there's some experiments going on as well. So maybe there's something with Crosshair DNA we don't know about. So either way, we are going to have a Bad Batch finale that's going to take place in Mount Tantus or in or around Mount Tantus. And the Bad Batch are going to have to either break Crosshair out, or I almost prefer this. What I would like to see happen, let me throw it out there. For some reason, the Bad Batch have to go to Tantus. I don't know if Omega gets captured or they discover they have to go there to wipe the minds of everybody or get rid of whatever way. They have to go to Tantus. They get there. They're about to be sliced and diced by somebody or shot. There'll be whatever happened. At the same time, Crosshair breaks free, saves the Bad Batch, and they all get out of there together. Can you imagine them about to die, Omega about to get shot, and all of a sudden, and you see Crosshair there, and they have Crosshair looking at Hunter just for a moment. Don't say anything. Hunter nods, and Crosshair just goes up with them. And that's how the season.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. Something like that.
I admire your optimism.
I'm an optimist at heart. What can I say? What about you then? What is your Force vision?
I'm going back to a prediction I made when we had our good friend Zach McDonald on Scoundrels of the Force back in the day.
Okay.
Crosshair's about to become the first Death Trooper.
Oh, wow. That is harsh. That is a pessimistic way to look at things. Oh, wow. But it's not
I
wrong.
think that assassin that they made, I think that was their first prototype. And Crosshair is going to be first gen of the Death Troopers, and I feel like as I said, I think Crosshair's end is going to be a tragic one because I think he's going to get there. I have this scene in my head, and I hate that I have it. I feel like they go to Tantis to rescue Omega. I think Omega is going to get captured. Maybe it's Crosshair that's the one that captures her. Hunter and Crosshair get into this fight, but Crosshair doesn't have his markings, or we can't see his markings. Hunter kills him, and then sees his marking, and then is like, "Oh my god, that was Crosshair."
Oh shit! Wow, maybe.
I could be completely wrong,
right.
But it just in my head, I'm just like, they have gone so dark on these last couple of episodes that we could very well get the release of, oh yes, Crosshair's back, and that's what I hope we get. But I'm kind of preparing myself for the worst.
Okay.
That they turn Crosshair into a Death Trooper. He goes and captures Omega. The Bad Batch go to rescue Omega, and they have to confront Crosshair, and maybe they just don't know it's him because, like the assassin, they had his markings removed. But then there's some way that they recognize.
Wow.
Maybe it's like a spiritual thing between him and Hunter, where they're like, where Hunter realizes, and he's like, "Oh my god, what have I done?"
Damn.
And then on, like, in memory of Crosshair, they're like, "Let's burn this whole thing to the fucking ground."
Wow. All right. Well, there you have it. Optimist side and the pessimist side. We'll see which one's closer to the mark.
I hope you're right. I want to put this on the record. I hope I am wrong, but just how dark they've started to go with it, I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's gonna have a happy ending. And one more thing I want to raise, and this is the tinfoil hat theory that I talked about at the start. I need to get our good friend Kiwi Jess to validate this. Did you pick up on a New Zealand accent on that doctor?
I did. And you know what? That's another, I was going to, talk about that as far as the catch up goes. I do wonder if there is some connection there.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why they chose that accent, or is there just the actress, or is it because there is some connection between her and Omega?
And there was also, and let's just get straight into the catch up. I feel like I kind of thought she looked a little like Omega. Like if you take the glasses off, if you took the glasses off.
Oh yeah. You're not wrong. I think that's going to be an interesting point we got coming up. I can't wait to see how that unfolds into something. It might be nothing, but you're not alone in thinking that might.
Okay, good.
There might be a connection there.
Good.
I did think about that myself. So I'm interested to see. It could be nothing. It could absolutely be nothing. Could us. We're definitely, if nothing else, Star Wars fans are very guilty of looking deeply into things that aren't there. Definitely has happened before.
It could definitely be just a red herring, but I was just like, wait, that sounded like a New Zealand accent. She looks and this was on this was on the third rewatch of it. Right. I was like, that was definitely a New Zealand accent. She looks kind of like Omega, but wearing glasses.
Right.
Are we going to get to like a Galen Marek, like a Star Killer scenario where they just go into a room and there's a buttload of Omegas?
That would be something. That could be something to that effect. You never know. Cloning is a big to do with this and with the Mandalorian, and obviously with Snokes and with Palpatine coming back. Study Snokes. So a lot of things coming up potentially that could be interconnected, and Star Wars likes to interconnect things eventually. So I think that could be a potential way to go. Wow. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. Any last minute things you have to say about the episode? Anything you want to touch base on?
No, I've got nothing. I've got my wacko conspiracy theory out there. I've talked about how much I hated the lieutenant guy. I won't even refer to him by name. Yeah, the only one thing that I do kind of want to say is like I'm very into my symbolism, and the vulture is the symbol of not only death but rebirth. So I feel like that was very kind of telling that they had the two vultures circling. I thought that was a nice bit of symbolism. They had the two vultures above him, and that was kind of like his rebirth.
Yeah,
of like I'm a new man.
Agreed. I did like that as well.
Cool.
Filoni in general, and I know he's not as involved this year, but Filoni's always pushed the birds and the animals, how they connect to the universe. Got the obviously Ahsoka has her Corsair or Convair rather, and there's the wolves and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of a meant to be indication of something like that as well. The last thing I want to discuss, just in general, we kind of talked about it previously during the episode, but I want to hammer home on it. Like there's great moments in this episode and in the series as a whole where we learn what the difference is between loyalty to a person, to a team, and to a loyalty to a cause, and misplaced loyalty. This Crosshair is really a tragic character. He was created to be a soldier. He was implanted with a chip like the rest of them. He, unlike the Bad Batch, couldn't fight that off as well. And he says his implant chip was taken out. I still don't know if I believe that. By the way, I feel like something he kind of didn't want to like blame it on that, because like if you remember, if we saw correctly in the original first season, he didn't get taken out. He was intensified at one point. We never saw it taken out. I mean, we saw the scar, but it almost looked like that could have been from the intensification process as a whole. I kind of feel like it's in Crosshair's character where Mika says, "It's your chip, it's not you," and he's just going to double down and say, "It's not my chip. I'm my own person. I don't believe in this nonsense. This has nothing to do with the chip, even if the chip is still in there intensified." But either way, that makes it even more tragic. He can't fight against his chip, and he makes that choice at the end. He's like, you know what? This is who I am. I am a soldier. I am going to make. This is the highest level of loyalty to me. I love my brothers, but they're making the wrong choice. I'm doing the right thing. They're doing the wrong thing. And now he had to live with that choice. And we're seeing how sometimes you can live through a bad choice and you can still learn. It's never too late to learn. It's never too late to come around. You might have to take some shots. You might have to take some boots in the mud. You might have to be down to your last straw. But you can always turn around and change. You can always make things work. And I think that's an important part of the whole conversation of the Bad Batch, because the Bad Batch has been about that from the beginning. Crosshair is taking a little bit longer than Hunter and the crew did, but he's getting there. And that's very important in this sake. But also, and related to that, it's how we treat people. It's who do we treat these people who have been loyal to us? The Empire, such an oppressive state, taking them and using them as Lieutenant Dickhead said, use parts. These are people. These are people that they fought for you. They worked for you, and you're discarding them like that. There's something to be shown in that, and it's really some heavy topics of conversation to really have from a kid show, as it were.
Cartoon.
From a cartoon, from anything. But it's why this is some of the best Star Wars we have. It really hits on those themes, really hits me in a deep connected way. And I really can't wait to see how we finish up. I'm in love with these characters. I can't wait to see where they finish up. So that, I think, is where we're going to end up this episode this week.
It better be. I got nothing to add to that. You've done it again. You did it with the Mandalorian yesterday. You done it today. Let's just cut the black.
Let's get out of here. Black. All right. Well, thank you very much, folks, for sticking with us again. First time here, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Come back for more. We'll be back next week with another 2 episodes talking about the Mandalorian and the Bad Batch. Of course, every week we're here. Every other week we're here on Class Action with Richard Eric Jarvie, where we take 2 things, put them up against each other in 5-6 categories and determine who is the ultimate winner in that said battle. Last week we did Creed 3 versus Rocky 3. I'm not sure what our next thing is, but we'll get to that soon. We can also find 2 mediocre white dudes on film, PJ and myself, going through different franchises. Right now it's Lethal Weapon. That should be a lot of fun there. And we'll do a live episode soon of Scream 6 potentially this Sunday. We're going to look into that. Wait for that. Anything else? Yeah, that's about it. Join us on patreon.com/PLD Projects. We have a bunch of crew over there. Matty Kearns, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, John Lestrina, Love those guys. Have a great chat going, and yeah, join us there. Join us to support our crew. Of course, please share out this video. Get people, tell your friends. We're trying to have a modest goal of 500 subscribers. We're working towards that, and we would really appreciate any help you could do that way. I think that's it. You can find me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. Matty, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. You can find my band Mourner, that's MOURNER, on all streaming services. New song, The Axe Forgets, drops April 7th on all streaming services. And I didn't announce this yesterday because I wasn't sure if I could, but I got the email through today. If you are at Star Wars Celebration, come find me. I am going to have limited edition hard copies of the album. I know a lot of people don't use CDs these days, but if you do, I'm going to have hard copies of CD. I'm going to have like a download card. I'm going to have t-shirts. I'm just going to give away a whole bunch of free Mourner stuff. So if you're at Celebrate, and it's all going to be limited to The Axe Forgets because it was inspired by Star Wars. So I'm going to have all that stuff there. So if you see me, just say, hey, I'm a size this. I'll give you a t-shirt.
Nice. Very nice.
And yeah, you can find me here for Holy Snokes now twice a week for the foreseeable, and on Class Action every other week. Which I believe we said we were doing John Wick 4 versus MI4, but I can't remember if we nailed that in. But
that would be a good choice. That's always going to be a good choice. So
yeah, that's where you can find me. And you can find me in my house watching Star Wars, where you all should be if you're watching this podcast. You should be watching Star Wars right now. In fact, once we're done here, go watch Bad Batch. If you haven't watched Bad Batch before, start today.
Absolutely. Definitely. I can't say it any clearer than that. So until next time. May the Force be with you. Always.